I got caught up in worship and forgot my cue to come up. So here I am. You know what? I think that's my water bottle that I brought up earlier too. Well, thanks for those of you who chose to come back and listen to me again. Share a little bit about IDES as a presentation and just kind of let you guys know, for those who don't know, who we are and what we do, and some of the growth that we've had and experienced, and just kind of be able to walk that through with you guys. So I'm excited to be able to be here and share this with y'all. IDES has been around for 51 years. We're going on 52 now. Worked in 135 countries around the world. Our mission is to meet the physical and spiritual needs of suffering people all around the world in the name of Jesus Christ. We do that through 3 focus areas that we call disaster response, development work, I'll make sure I'm on track here, development work, and disciple making. Now, when your mission is to meet physical and spiritual needs of suffering people, and your focus areas are disaster, development, which is long-term sustainability, community development, and disciple making, I can make an argument that there's very little that we can't get involved in going on around the world if we wanted to get involved in going on around the world. But we call the intersection of these help and hope, and that goes back to our mission statement of physical and spiritual needs. We want to meet physical needs because people just have value. We just love them. And when they're hurting, we want to be able to come alongside and take care of them. But we also want to use that as an opportunity, as a tool, to be able to share the love of Christ. Not in any way that's forcing anything, but just a genuine compassion, spoken word of Christ. And then let God do the rest. Open the doors for the conversations. So our focus, and I have an amazing team, and I'll highlight. I know we're going to do some Gap stuff, some food packing later, but I feel blessed to have David DeVolt as part of our team, who represents IDES up here in the Northwest. So if you ever want David to come share, he's there, and he could do this better than I can for sure. But it's my name, so they made me do it. So our focus areas, let me just share a little bit in a couple of stories about what goes on. Whoops, we'll put that up there with disciple making. So with disciple making, we want to transform, and then we want to be able to have the opportunity to teach, and then we want to train people to train and teach as well. We do this through various efforts. We call it our Rick Jett Leadership Conference, Bibles and Christian resources that we hand out, legacy church planting, and learning centers. One of my favorite things that we get to do is I get to travel to Thailand, is one of the places that we go, and we have a leadership conference. And here on the edge of Thailand, between next to Myanmar, we have over 400 Burmese pastors and Burmese Christians of various depths of Christianity who are able to come for a week-long leadership conference to be encouraged, and then to be trained in the Bible, to be trained on preaching, to be able to go back to their respective communities. And right now, if you think about what's going on in Myanmar, if you know, and the coup that's happening there, it's a terrible, terrible thing. And the stories that we hear there are horrendous in that area. And so for them to come over is also just a breath of fresh air, for them to be taken care of while they're there for a little bit, to be able to go back refreshed and ready to share again. It's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity that we get to be there. And we host these, and we want to be able to share that because, again, disciple making, reaching people for Christ, that's the heart of what we do. One of the things that we do is we work through a lot of national workers. And so we want them to be able to be trained up. We want them to be strong in their faith. And so this is one way that we're able to do that. Another way that we're able to do that we've just launched, are in our pilot phase of, is what we call learning centers. And learning centers are simply an opportunity to be able to equip, train, and empower national workers in the work of disciple making. We want to make sure that there's training in good theology. And this is true because for many, I mentioned this earlier, syncretism happens and the old ways creep back in. And so we want to make sure that there's good theology on a regular basis. We want to make sure that there's good integral disciple making. We call it IDM, integral disciple making. It's holistic way of looking at disciple making to be able to bless the communities and reach more people for Christ. So these learning centers that we're piloting right now in New Zealand, in Nepal, and in the Middle East, in an area with some closed country folks that'll come together and be able to gather. And it's a multi-month long time with regular classes and regular trainings that happen to be able to lift them up and encourage them and prepare them to make more disciples. But it's really focused on the national leader in those areas as well. And then we have legacy churches as part of our disciple making, and it's church planting. And we emphasize this right now, and we talk about it. And I mentioned last time, in the last 18 months since we've kind of launched this, we've been able to plant 22 churches, and we have more in the pipeline that are a result of our projects, where the opportunity to put a well in a village in Ethiopia opens the door to a church that didn't exist in that village previously. We won't want anything to come in the way of completing that circle, if you will, of help and hope. And so we want to be able to come and plant churches. Now, we launched this, and it went out in our first publication, and our very first executive director, Richard Sprague, called me after he got that packet. And I thought, uh-oh, here we go. He called me and he said, "Now, David, we've planted churches since the very beginning, right?" And he starts listing off churches that have been planted since 1973, right when IDES started. And I said, "No, I know, but nobody else does, because we haven't shared those things as a part of what we do. We haven't made it a key thing and been able to share that." So we talk about 18 or 22 churches in the last 18 months, but there's been hundreds of churches, if not thousands of churches, in the 51 years that IDES has been in existence. So legacy church is an exciting part, and we see great fruit of that. One of those with our field workers in New Zealand. They serve in the Tauranga area of New Zealand, and they have a church called Current Church. They've been planting this church. She's a Kiwi, she's a native, and he's from, Oklahoma, Missouri, somewhere. Definitely not from there. But they have an incredible ministry, and I got to be there with them. And just a couple of months ago, they established their first eldership. They had E2 effective elders come down, and they had been walking them through the process, and they came down and celebrated the first eldership at this church in Tauranga. And they're running 80 to 100 people in a place that is very post-Christian, very secular, difficult place, and God is doing great things. So it's exciting to be able to watch this establishment of a church, from a church plant to an established church with its own eldership and its own leadership. And then I think about these people, and I'm going to click through some slides here, so keep that up there for me. When we started our legacy churches 18 months ago, this was the first one that we started. This sweet group of people in northern India, a group that we've worked with for years and years and years, providing food, providing care, providing a touch and a smile, because these people are outcasts. You can't see that very well, but just like in Bible times, leper colonies and lepers today are cast out from society. And their little kids who don't have leprosy are cast out with mom and dad from society because of the stigma of leprosy and what it is. And so we've been helping these people for a long time, and this became our first legacy church plant, to be able to give them a church that is for them and something that's done for them because people cared about them, to be able to put that church in. And the fun thing is our partners are able to also bring in medical professionals now and have a place that the government allows them to be able to treat and care for and manage the leprosy that these people are dealing with. So our very first church plant there in India of our legacy churches as we get going. I want to share another story here. And it's tied to a disaster, tied to the Philippines. In fact, you guys had Mike and Jeanette Propp here last year, who are incredible partners, and they were some of the key partners that we worked with here with Typhoon Rai. Typhoon Rai affected an incredible area in the Philippines. And working with multiple partners there, we were able to impact 750 families and be able to help them rebuild homes. Literal tons of food provided and literal tons of debris cleaned up. And if that wasn't exciting enough, we were able to provide medical bills. We were able to rebuild a medical clinic. But then they had almost 6,000 new people join their Bible studies since the typhoon in all of their churches. Simply because people reached out and because they helped, and they helped in the name of Christ. And they've had over 100 baptisms since there. Mike said, hey, it was the toughest year we've ever had, but it was our most rewarding year yet. In the face of a typhoon, because of the response of the people, lives were changed for eternity. This is how the mesh of everything we do is tied to disciple making and reaching people for Christ. It's not just hunger relief. It's not just rebuilding homes. It's always in the name of Christ, and it's always with that opportunity to share Christ. Our second focus area is development work. And this is the idea of supporting, sustaining, and allowing communities to succeed. It's the idea of teach a man to fish instead of give a man to fish. We provide medical care. We provide farm training. I'll keep going here. Medical care, like cleft palate surgeries, care for burn victims is part of our development work that we do. Traveling medical clinics. This was in Sudan, under a giant tree in the middle of the desert, a tree that absolutely would not fit in this room. We had multiple vehicles and 100+ people under this tree that was our clinic while we were there. You can see the IV bag hanging from the tree, from a separate tree with this gentleman. But one of the little boys that was there, he was suffering from malaria, and so they were giving him medication, and they were giving him a shot, and he had never had a shot, so he didn't care until he got that shot. And then that little guy did not appreciate the doctor anymore, that's for sure. But the doctor was saying that this boy's malaria was so progressed that he couldn't take the oral medication that he needed because he was vomiting constantly. And so the shot was just to calm his stomach so they could get the medication in him and then be able to treat the malaria. And he said, if this boy had gone another week, he would have been past the point of no return because of malaria, which is very treatable, yet kills many, many people all around the world. So medical care is a huge part, and it's a great opportunity because, you know, people are kind of strapped to an IV bag or they're right there with you, and you're able to share, and they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. And so it's an incredible opportunity through medical care to be able to provide help and hope to those who are in need. Access to clean water. This is a huge need, and it has so many ties even to health care, even to hunger relief. When they have clean water, the health needs have decreased significantly. And so we do a lot of clean water wells, and we partner with the people in the community. Because if you travel around, especially Africa, you find a ton of water wells that are empty and broken and not being used because they were put in with German and American parts that nobody can get, and they can't afford them anyway. And they were just put in and left, and so it's the Americans' pumps. They'll come fix it. So we partner with the communities, and the communities have to buy a well. Now, for the community to buy a well, they may raise a grand total of $30. That feels like a big amount to them, an insurmountable amount to them. And then the rest of the $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 we put in, but they don't know that. That's their well. They have ownership in that. It's all done with local parts so that when it breaks down, they have the ability to make sure that that is fixed and it's theirs. And what we've seen is a change from the old ways to these wells last, and they're repaired by the communities because it's theirs. I had a chief say when I was in a village, "Thank you so much for this clean water well. Our women now have hair." Because the women would put the pot on their head and walk for miles every single day and come back, and it was rubbed bald. And so what stood out to him was their women now have hair in their community. Amazing thing. One of the things that we also know is that those women and those girls, as they travel, they're preyed upon, not just by animals, but by men as well. And so this becomes an even greater issue of safety and security for these villages where people don't have to travel miles and miles to be able to provide this. One example, we have a partner with CMF that we've worked with for a long time, and they work with the Turkana tribe and the Turkana region as well of Kenya. And we've put in wells there. And the reason we put in these wells was as an opportunity because we had so much hunger relief there. And so we wanted to move from hunger relief to community development. And a little while after these wells had been going in, there was a severe drought that went through Kenya. And so we reached out and we said, hey, what are your needs? And they said, actually, all our people are fine because they're growing all this incredible produce. And in fact, they're able to help the people around us that don't have the ability to do this. Could we just put in more wells? And so at a cost of $15,000 a piece, we put in usually 10 wells or so every single year because the impact is significant. The results are somewhat this for the help side of things. Each farm feeds roughly 10 families, which is about 100 people. And so the initial project of 40 farms fed 4,000 people who had access to irrigated farming to be able to take care of their families and others. But then it led to this: 2,500 discipleship groups over the years, with 9,000 plus members in those discipleship groups. Since they have had 100 plus churches that they've started, and since 2017, they've had over 7,000 baptisms. Guys, that's a farm. That's a bunch of farms. But that's a farm, and what God can do through something like that. So development is more than just teaching people to farm and livestock training and providing for sustainability. It allows for long-term care in these communities and a long-term impact. And then we get into what we're known for, because again, it's in our name, is disaster response, where we're going to respond, we're going to rebuild, and yet we're also going to try to restore faith and restore the communities. This happens in a number of ways. It could be hunger relief. Hunger relief like you guys are going to participate in tomorrow. You are, right? You're going to go tomorrow? All right. Very good. And pack some food. Pack thousands of meals. I don't know if Jody's in here, but I can't remember how many meals we're trying to pack. It's a lot. 20,000, 40,000. So GAP stands for God Always Provides. It's food sustenance. It's designed to shorten the gap between meals. It ties in with a lot of our disaster relief, and it ties in as a way to bridge the gap to get to community development, to be able to help these communities. One of the beautiful things about it, and it's a lot of fun, it's assembly line style. It's very nutritious. It's a rice casserole, but it has 21 vitamins and minerals that are a part of that. So those vitamins and minerals are so important to these communities that generally are lacking this. But it's also an incredible opportunity for people of all ages here to leave literal fingerprints on something that's going overseas. We've shipped to 16 countries, and we have 13 active countries that we ship to right now and continue to work with. So GAP, hunger relief itself, is huge, a big need. And then we have the natural disasters. We have the hurricanes like Helene and Milton just here in our backyards over in Tennessee and North Carolina. And these caused such widespread destruction. And yet, God has used these in incredible ways. It's hard to see the water line there, but that water line is probably right up here. It's about the counter height level for a lot of these homes. And that's not just water. Anything that water touches has to go away if you've ever been in a flood. Anything that it can soak in, because it's filthy water. It's dirty water that's been coming down. And so as volunteers go out, and if you're bored, I'd love to put you to work, because we got volunteers all over North Carolina and Tennessee, with our church in Texas, who is leading volunteers as well. We have volunteers from a tornado in Kentucky, and then flooding on the other side of Kentucky right now at the same time. So a lot of disaster response work. And the volunteers who show up, not only are they incredible people, But they do an incredible work beyond just rebuilding a home, because they do restore hope for people who are hopeless. There's a lady named Wanda, and we've been working with her. Some folks actually refused to work with her because she didn't really want help. After Hurricane Helene came through and wiped out her house, she told the pastor there, she said, "I've got no one in my life. Everything's gone, and I just lost everything I have. I just want to die." And so the pastor met with her many times, and some other orgs said, "No, we're not going to be able to do this." And one of my disaster coordinators, Paul, who's an incredible man, sat down with her and just felt led to share the gospel and why she should have hope. And she walked out of that conversation a different person. She has a heart issue, and she had stopped taking care of that heart issue. Since then, she is taking care of her heart issue. She has hope, she's excited, and she has a home that is now being built for her and is just about wrapped up. She gets the keys tomorrow, I think, to this home. And the pastor said she's a completely changed person, and she's here at our church now, and we're able to care for her, and we're able to love on her. We're rebuilding homes, but we're doing so much than just rebuilding homes. We're restoring hope for those who didn't have hope. I think of Hurricane Ian. When it went through, one of our church partners there, New Day Christian Church, they helped out in a big way. We helped over 400 families that we were able to help with them, with numerous homes rebuilt. Right now, we're in the process of rebuilding 11 homes in Tennessee and North Carolina right now, with 6 major remodels on homes at the same time in that area, and then probably 3 or 4 more in the pipeline. These are expensive things here in the U.S. God has blessed us with the ability to do it. Incredible volunteers and some crazy organizations that have showed up and said, "Hey, here's a bunch of material if you can use it to build a home." And a concrete company that showed up and said, "Hey, we can help pour your concrete. We can get that for you." And God is just blessed to be able to stretch our capacity and our ability to help more and more people in this area. But with Hurricane Ian, we helped a lot of families. And in 1 year, they had over 500 baptisms at their church. And they credit a lot of this to the response that happened from the church and from IDES being able to partner there, because they said, we're now known in our community as the church that helped out in the hurricane. That's an incredible, incredible opportunity. So our U.S. disaster response. Internationally, disasters take a lot of different forms, and we've talked about man-made disasters in Myanmar, man-made disasters in Ukraine. And one of the things that we've done in Ukraine is partnering even with refugees in Poland and Romania and the countries surrounding. And in a camp in Romania, we were able to put in these tiny homes, which are 20-foot shipping containers that are converted into homes, and they had the space. And so for the women and children who were allowed to leave Ukraine, they had a place to be until they could go home, back to their homes. And they were at a Christian camp, and so they were cared for, and they were witnessed to, and they were shared right there as well. An incredible opportunity. One of the things that we did, we partnered a lot in the Kherson and continue to, in the Kherson region area there in Ukraine. And we purchased vans, and the vans were to bring supplies in to those who could not or chose not to leave, because this area has been very contested over this past couple of years. So a lot of supplies. Jody shipped 11 or 12 shipping containers worth of supplies, as well as supplies that were purchased there in Poland and then shipped in to be able to be used there. And at the same time brought people out, those who could evacuate and those who could escape. Those vans brought stuff in and then brought people out. One of the churches that the pastor chose to stay there in Kherson, instead of leave, he had the opportunity to leave and come to the western side near Ivano-Frankivsk. But he chose to stay in Kherson, and he said, I can't leave, I have to stay because this is my church, this is my community. And before the church, before the invasion, the church was not a huge church, less than 100 people in the church. And since this, because they chose to stay, I've got an incredible video of somebody with a phone showing hundreds of people in the church worshiping God on Sunday. Their church about a month and a half ago got bombed, and so they found another place that's smaller to meet, and they still have hundreds of people in that area who are gathering to meet. And it's because they say, well, our pastor stayed. And because he stayed, we were able to send a lot of relief supplies through him so that his church could help. Nobody there knows Ides. They don't need to know Ides. But they know that the local church cared enough to stay, and the local church cared enough to help. And that's having an incredible impact in that community. We see this over and over. That's one example, but there's multiple churches where this happened. A lot of people who retreated to the western side in the town called Ivano-Frankivsk, we've been able to plant 1 and 2 churches there. Actually, we're just about to plant a second church there because of the people that left and the aid that was able to be provided to them in that region as well, even though it's a safe area. But because they had no ability to go back home, we were able to meet their needs and then plant 2 churches there as well. Oh, I need to go back. Turkey earthquake. This was just, a couple of years ago, year and a half ago. Turkey's not an easy place to work for Christians. We have some incredible partners, and our international project managers went in. She's a nurse, and he's a pilot, and they're 30-year veteran missionaries who know what they're doing when they go into contexts like this. But 2 cool things that happened is we set up food trucks that provided 60,000 meals a month to people who needed it. We also partnered to fix a Muslim baker's bakery. And in response, even though he knew this was the Christian church, he provided bread for free for many months so that the churches could hand that out and be able to bless those in the community, because he knew what we were there doing, and that's created an incredible opportunity to share the gospel. I shared earlier, Ides has had growth, and we're in a time of growth, and God has blessed that. He's blessed our opportunities in incredible ways. But what comes from that is also a cramping of space. Because when we moved into this place 14 years ago from a pole barn, prior to that, a pole barn, we moved in here and said, gosh, we'll never be able to use all this space. And God chuckled because he knew what was coming. And so now, like I said, our GAP department and our U.S. disaster departments, as they have grown, they're using every vertical space they can, because there's no more floor space, and the one dock for all the trucks that come in and out, everybody's on top of each other, and they're stalled out. And so we're launching a campaign. We're in the middle of a campaign called Expanding Help and Hope, and the idea is, and we're in the process of building this giant global impact center, which is a 18,000 square foot warehouse. Our existing one's about 16,000 square foot. So the GAP side of things is going to have their own place to grow in, and then the U.S. disaster side will have their own place to continue to grow in as that response continues to grow as well. Additionally, we'll have future offices there as well. We've been blessed with some initial donors who allowed us to be able to have some funds to get started on this. And this is a big deal for us. As we look at where we are at about 700,000 people a year that we're able to impact, and we do the projections and we look at this Global Impact Center and the growth that it's going to give us, the U.S. disaster section that's going to grow, and the office space for some much needed people that'll come and be dedicated to these, we project that we're going to be able to help over 2 million people a year once this is completed. And so we're excited for this. It's a huge project, much larger than we have ever stepped into. It's a $6.3 million project, and a lot of that is a detention pond that you can see up there, and sprinkler systems and codes, and we had to put a parking space in, parking lot, because the city required it. But God's done some cool things, because just a year before, the 3 acres to the north or to the west of us there was a landlocked area, and we said, you know what? We should purchase this. It's at a good price right now. We'll use it in the future for who knows what. We're working on our building plan, and that's fine. It's going to fit on our existing property. Well, then when it was submitted to the city, they said, well, no, you have to add like 40 or 50 parking spaces, and you have to put a detention pond, and you have to do all these things that we would have never been able to do. So what we thought we were buying for 10 years in the future is now already dug into right now, and we would have never been able to step into this campaign had we not purchased that ahead of time. So God has blessed us to be able to do that, and we're excited about this campaign and the impact that it's going to have. I'm going to wrap up because it's getting time to eat, and I don't want people to be late to eat. I want us, and I'm hungry. Maybe that's it too. Maybe I'm hungry. It's okay. So I'm going to wrap up. I thank you guys for letting me be able to share a little bit about what IDES is doing. If you have more questions, I'll be back there. Jody will be there. David will be here. We're happy to share what God is doing and be able to tell you in a little more detail what's going on. But thank y'all. Appreciate it. Corey.